Righty. Hello, historical people, Order of the Bladey people. Something that somebody's kind of mentioned to me that I thought would be good to cover is how to deal with people in different kind of fight styles, stances potentially. So it's a weird one because we're all here to develop our own style. We all fight very differently. And everyone you come up against is going to fight differently to the person you've just fought, if only a little bit. They'll favour certain moves, they'll favour certain tactics, they'll favour certain strategies, okay? But there's a few things going into a fight that we can sort of look at and go, okay, what do I need to know about this person? Or what can I learn from this person immediately? The obvious things are obviously, are they taller than me? Are they shorter than me? That should be your first kind of, okay, cool, okay, I'm about equal level, or no, they're much taller, they're much shorter, whatever. Because in terms of defences and things like that, it doesn't change too much, but a taller person may be able to come over some of your blocks, especially if you're like crumpowing or whatever, trying to block with the edge up. They've got a little bit more gravity to come and power through. But also their range is probably highly likely to be longer than yours. So that means you're going to have to play a very different game against a taller opponent than you may do against a shorter opponent. I'm lucky, I sit just under 6 foot myself, so I fight people smaller than me, I fight people taller than me, I have to deal with both. And basically what I find is the taller guys can break through some of my higher guards more effectively, but their bodies and legs and things like that are always more open. You also end up sitting what I call in the pocket more, so you have to press that distance and make an attack and then potentially run away or stay in there. But with bigger people, sometimes they've just got more force on their side, or more strength, or whatever they call it, more weight distribution to be able to grapple you better. So who knows, I'm not a good grappler anyway, so I don't really do it. Another thing is, what kind of weapon are they using? So I've just put the saber down, but now I've got a longsword. What does this necessarily mean? It means I've got one weapon. I've got one line of attack and one line of defense, okay? So that means so long as you can deal with the one line, okay, you can knock my sword over here, I'm pretty screwed over here, okay? Probably won't happen if you're a single-hander or whatever, because I've got a leverage advantage, but then that's another thing that you need to take into advantage. Because I've got two hands on this thing, I've got more leverage to deal with. So if you're a single-hander and we meet mid to mid, let's say, I'll probably have an advantage over that, okay? And especially mechanics of the longsword, you often throw in a lot more of your body into it as well. Your structure's a lot stronger for the most part. So the type of weapon that people use is also something to take into account. You might fight longsword on longsword, but they've got a really short, whippy sword, and you've got a big, longer, bulkier one. So maybe you should be playing to thrusts. Maybe you should be, you know, looking at really coming in with some harder attacks to keep their lighter sword working harder, because they're going to need to put more energy into their defenses, things like that. But basically, some common fight styles that you'll come across to hopefully make things a bit easier for you to narrow down is you'll have the kind of lunge and recover guys. Usually they'll wield a single-hander. You can get them in longsword as well. It's just a style. And they are a lunge and recover, or like an in and out fighter. So they'll come in, attack, and then they'll leave. Guerrilla warfare, I like to call it. So they strike, and then they're out. And they're always really annoying. They'll usually get loads of hand snipes, and they'll always be difficult to catch. You won't score many hits on them if you do, and they wind you up. So, kind of guerrilla fighter, in and out, hit and run kind of tactics. Other people you might find are what I call busy fighters, and I'm definitely one of these, where I'll always just keep the pressure on, call us pressure fighters or whatever, but something's always happening. If there's a bit of distance between us, I'm like taking that distance, making you think. The sword's always in some kind of motion. They can be tough to deal with sometimes because they're just a bit more unpredictable. But because they're so busy, they're not really locked into a guard anywhere. So if you can just get in the way of whatever bullshit they're doing, you can quite likely, you know, do something back. Obviously, the issue is reaction is usually slower than action. So if someone's busier, they can tend to flow off things a bit quicker. But still, nice solid defense in the middle of that. You can just come straight through. You also get what I like to call the bear trap fighters, who will just kind of sit there, not moving, not doing much at all, and then boom. No one attacks like that, but you know what I mean. Nice big, horrible, scary attacks. So you just sort of go fuck, especially with the contrast of them being set still. I know Fred and Adam like to play this way pretty much. Some people will like to, well, so that's kind of overall styles. But on the offense, particularly, you'll find people that like to snipe. So I'm a bit like this, and also I know Rob is kind of like this, but a counter fighter version. But I'm just looking for one hit. Just looking for that one nice little cheeky hit in there. Whereas you get some people who are much more accuracy through volume of fire, and they'll just send out 10 attacks, see if they land, see whatever happens. So sometimes you get used to fighting people who you can just, as soon as you deal with that first action, second action, they kind of back off and everything gets to reset. And I would say that's becoming more of a default for our club especially. But it does pay to practice sending in just flurries and how to deal with just loads of attacks coming at you. Good way to practice that is to do continuous sparring. So instead of just as soon as somebody gets hit, reset, just keep fighting until someone's taken like 3 lethal wounds and stuff. A lot harder to judge, a lot harder to actually remember who's hit what and who's done whatever, because it's just a bit more chaotic, but very valuable as a training exercise. I think that's all I can really talk about without rambling absolute bullshit. So yeah, hopefully that's useful.